Chapter 21. The task was grisly, and it took a while, but the remains of the dead were placed in body bags, zipped tight, and then lined outside the ramp to the anteater. All it would take was the okay from Kozlowski, and they would be carted back into the freezer inside the lander. When the bags lay in a row beside the lander, Colonel Kozlowski called for a moment of silence for the dead. When that was over, she spoke. "I'd better say something now, because I might be the next one to go into one of these things. These were good people. There will be plenty of time to honor them properly and grieve later. They gave their all to the mission. Others may not recognize their contribution later, but we always will. Argento, Jastrow, Rodriguez, McCoy, Lantern, Chang. Their shells may be zipped up, but their spirits are still with us. And they will be as long as we do our jobs with dedication and sincerity." She bowed her head and observed her own moment of silence. In her mind, she heard a sweet snatch of some tune that Jastrow had played once. It sounded like hope, even now. "Okay," she said, keeping herself stern and businesslike. The bags were put on a wagon and taken up the ramp. A raucous squawking made Kozlowski jump. She turned around, hand going to the sidearm she was wearing. Sitting on the edge of a folding chair that had been used for lunch was Private Ellis, lips around the end of Jastrow's saxophone. He moved the mouthpiece. "Sorry, Colonel." "That's all right, Private. I'm just a bit on edge." "You think I can ever learn to play this thing?" "Why would you want to?" "Jastrow. He always wanted me to try. I always told him I had no musical ability, and besides, there was spit all over it." He sighed. "That part doesn't seem so important now." "I'm sorry about your friend." "Yeah. I figure we've gotten about 1,000 or so bugs for every man killed here." "It's not worth it, is it?" "No, it's not." She felt someone looking at her, turned. Daniel Grant was walking down the ramp. She was about to get on her soapbox and rant at him, but then she noticed his face. It was white. In his eyes were the beginnings of tears. She turned away and let him come up to her. Let him start the conversation if he wanted to. "I want you and your people to know how sorry I am," he said finally, after a long silence. "I guess when you see life turning into death so abruptly, it puts things into perspective." "Some business we're in, huh, Grant?" she said. "Some business." He nodded thoughtfully. "My problems, they can't compare with this." He sighed. "We can't quit now, though, can we?" "No. My country sent me here to accomplish something. It's my duty to do that. You'll get what you came here to get, Grant." "And maybe more than I bargained for." "Definitely." "Colonel, there's going to be a link-up with the Razzia in 10 minutes. We're going to confer on the situation and decide a course of action. Naturally, I want you to be there." "Yes, I'll be right there." She turned and continued to do what she could in the time remaining to her to give her the confidence and grit that she herself felt rapidly escaping from her. It was a makeshift conference table at best, but it would have to do. "I've just finished a full transmission to Captain Hastings of the events that have just occurred here," said Corporal O'Connor. He swiveled and turned a switch. "He's waiting to join the conference. Permission to let him in?" Grant nodded. "Permission granted," said Kozlowski. "We'll need all the input we can get." Captain Hastings bid his regrets at the turn of events. His voice sounded even more subdued than usual. "Now then," said Grant, "we've got a situation on our hands. I'd like to say, why don't we just give it another try with the perimeter extension harpoon? However, after what we've just been through, I don't think so." "It's possible that we're going to have to," said Kozlowski. "But that doesn't mean we can't explore other possibilities. Dr. Begali, you seem to be the resident expert on the present situation with the aliens. What's your prognosis?" Clearly, our projections were quite accurate," said the man, after scratching his large nose. "There is a genetic offshoot of the aliens, and the originals are attempting to eradicate them. Only we never anticipated this kind of scale, or that it would hinder our actions to this degree." "Not quite true," said Kozlowski. "We've got the technology, it's just not working as well as we would like." Begali's ferret-like eyes flicked back and forth over those assembled. "Despite our feelings of loss and frustration, I cannot forget just how correct my projections were about the recessive gene. Something that was quite unlikely. Naturally, we're sorry for the loss. But after years and years, my science seems to be correct." He tapped his finger emphatically. "What we all want is in that hive. It's the answer to our dreams. Maybe, ultimately, even to the whole alien conflict." "Why would you say that?" said Henriksen. We came here to get the Queen Mother royal jelly, and we've got to do that. Do you know how much we've been working with in these last 2 decades? Almost 200 gallons worth, and that's all. Our tank here can go well up to over 2,000 gallons, and I'm sure we will fill it. With that amount to work with, all kinds of possibilities will open up. We can learn something, I suppose, from this red and black alien business. Still, it's all academic curiosity. There are no practical applications yet. With the jelly, those applications may be possible."
"Oh, like what?"
"The key to the genetic control of the aliens. It could be in the Queen down there and her royal jelly. I'm sorry, Mr. Grant, but there's a lot more at stake here than money for your company and hyperspeed for the armed forces." He tapped the table emphatically. "Why do you think the red aliens are attempting genocide on the blacks?"
"Isn't it the same old story?
They're different." Begali shook his head. "You've got to have a certain amount of intelligence to be bigoted. The Xenos aren't that smart. No, it's because on a very real level, The existence of difference threatens each other. Eradication is programmed into the species. I would dare say that in hives every once in a while red eggs are laid and immediately destroyed by the queen or the queen's guards. When we removed the queen from the black hive and killed her guards, it probably allowed time for these freakish red eggs already laid to develop and grow, and then escape and build their own hive.
Look, this is all very interesting, said Kozlowski. But how is it going to get us past the war going on down there and into the hive where we can do our job? And get out with our butts intact, I might add.
Yes, said Grant ruminatively. A definite priority. Let's look at it this way then, said Begali. What we have here is warfare on a grand scale. Each of these alien races would like to eradicate the other. Annihilate. This mission is deeply embedded in their chromosomal structure. He shrugged. Now, if we just tilt that warfare in the favour of the blacks, that would be to our definite advantage. We don't want mutant jelly. We want the black jelly, the stuff we know something about and we can use. Hastings' voice crackled over the radio. I've got lots of great weapons up here, folks. If you want, we can just nuke the Red Hive. Begali nodded. Ah, excellent. That might just work. How? Grant asked. Kozlowski nodded. Well, it would kill off the Red Queen Mother for one thing, and with her, any psychic control of her drones, which would send the Red Army into disarray. More than that, said Begali. Without that control, instinctively the Red Army would retreat towards their hive. Equally instinctively, the Black Army would pursue. Grant snapped his fingers, leaving the Black Hive wide open. That would be the theory, yes. It is the best choice, in my opinion, said Begali. We'd still have to deal with the Black Guards, and they will be bigger and fiercer. But they would be limited in number. What we're facing out there is a problem of sheer oppressive volume. Grant smacked the table. Yes, we're going to have to do it, I think. Opinion, Colonel? Sure, why not? At the very least, we're going to kill a lot of bugs. Captain, how soon can you have those warheads ready? Said Grant. A couple of hours, came the voice. Excellent. We can accomplish this well before nightfall, said Kozlowski. Get started, Captain. We can always postpone till morning if necessary. I don't think that will be necessary, said Hastings. I'll get right to it. Grant was nodding, his face intent. One more thing, Colonel. I'd like to come with you when you go into that hive. What for? Said Kozlowski. You're a civilian. You're not trained for this kind of work. I feel responsible here. I feel a moral obligation. You need extra people. I can aim a gun and shoot it. Okay, she said. I want... He blinked. What? I said you can go.
There's a spare suit about your size down in the holding tank in the locker room. We'll go over the situation here in a few minutes. I'll brief you on a few things that you'll have to know, and then you can suit up." Grant's mouth flapped for a moment like a fish out of water. "It'll be good to have you along, Grant." Henriksen and Begali excused themselves to start preparations for the next assault. "All right, people," announced Kozlowski. "Now that we've got a plan, let's chew over some details." She felt charged again. Those bugs were going to pay. Big time. Kozlowski was letting him go along. A few minutes after the hour-long meeting, Daniel Grant was making his way down to the locker room, brain buzzing with the briefing that he'd just received. He felt beat up with facts and instructions, as though somehow Kozlowski had put him through a brief but intense boot camp, under the whip of drill instructor Koz herself. Not fun. Not that he wasn't sincere about wanting to go along. He just hadn't really expected for her to agree to his volunteering. "Well, nothing for it now, old man. You're in for the full 9 yards now. Play it out, do your job, and this will turn out fine. Just fine." He entered the familiar smell of the locker, particularly ripe now from the recent press of ripe bodies that had just passed through. Where was it that Kozlowski had said the spare suit was? Oh yes, over in the cabinet yonder. No lock, no latch. Sabotage was the last thing on Grant's mind. He was so preoccupied with the lessons he'd learned about alien killing. He opened the door and saw the suit, and reached for it. What he did not see was the alien egg pod sitting in the shadows.